Hi, I'm Kristen Stockton. I am the owner of JASKAP Consulting and Executive Coaching, and I'm joined today with Kathleen Rumford of Katlytic.
Hey there, Kathleen from Katlytic.
Thanks for joining me. So I was really inspired to do this blog and interview with you, Kathleen, because we're in an unprecedented time and we are both working professionals. We work remotely. We've got coaching experience. We've worked with businesses and leaders before, but now we have this other layer of a lot of parents finding themselves in a new situation where they're balancing so much at the same time. And you have a rich background that also includes successfully homeschooling your two now adult children.
Right.
And so I thought we could just collaborate together as professionals and share some ideas and best practices that could help others who are navigating through change and navigating through this particular period of time in our country's history, really.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, world
thanks
history.
for being here.
Yeah.
First and foremost, just for our parents or anyone who's watching this is an unprecedented time, and to take a pause and help people realize that on top of the layers of working remotely and on top of the layers of having your kids at home, this is different because we have another layer of stress really complicating and a complex issue that we're all dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my experiences with homeschooling my kids in a normal time, normal environment. And so the coronavirus and the stock market and all that stuff, people, maybe even being out of work and having money concerns on top of the virus, and kids being worried, or kids being upset that they're pulled out from their friends at school. I mean, those things are on top of just a normal homeschooling kind of environment. So the input and ideas that are coming to parents who are watching this now are going to be somewhat skewed because they're coming from me from a normal environment. We will try to talk about, the extra stress and fear and that kind of stuff and how you might be able to navigate that. But yeah, we totally understand that everything that's talked about today, take what you can from it, take just little bits of advice that might work for you and resonate for you. And we know that not everything is going to resonate, but we totally understand that people are in a different place than they would be normally in homeschooling. And our heart goes out to everybody who's suffering medically and suffering financially right now. And yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, one of the things that I wanted to get out of just the work that I do is just helping people be successful, being able to recognize where they are, where they want to go, and how to do that successfully and to navigate some of these periods of change. And oftentimes when I was working inside corporate America and spent 14 years at KPMG, I had to coach a lot of professionals who are dealing with a lot of complex challenges in their life, in their kids' life, in their family's life. It's just, there's always this constant churn. And when you think you've gotten some success strategies in place, something else gets layered over. And what worked here doesn't always work over there. And I think it's really important to take a step back and think about, how do I prioritize right now in this environment, kind of taking things one day at a time, and knowing every day is gonna require something else, and just taking a pause and realizing it's a messy, complicated situation. And what worked for me in, over the summer or during a snowstorm or what have you is not going to be the same here in this situation. So in your experience, what's kind of the most important thing for you as you reflected back on, being at home and making sure you're caring for your kids and also dealing with their educational and kind of learning environment? What was the most important thing for you that would be helpful for folks to hear today?
Well, honestly, I think the first thing would be mindset. there's worry in people's lives right now, and parents have that worry, and it can be communicated and transferred to the kids as well. And I'm not saying don't worry necessarily, but just remember that what you're feeling can be transferred over to your kids. And then your kids also, especially if they're older, have some worry because of all that's going on right now. So then there can be some clashes. And then, as I mentioned, maybe younger kids, middle school, late elementary school, if they're coming home and now they don't have their friends and stuff like that, that is something that I experienced when my daughter was 8. She came home from being in public school, and we were started homeschooling, and so we had to work on that as well. So your mindset is going to play a lot in how successful things can be in your home. So my recommendation would be to really look at this time as a potential gift. If you look 3 months ahead, and let's say things are simmered down in 3 months, who knows? But let's just say 3 months is normally the end of school. If you're back in June now, and you're looking back over this time back to now, what would you want to say happen? What would you want to say happen with your family, the kids, schooling, your own work, that kind of thing? Start there, kind of start with the end in mind, and paint a picture of family bonding. Kids feeling like they've got some sense of control, that they're in an environment that they're learning and growing and thriving, an environment where you are getting your work done. And so then how do you put that together? So that's where I would start. I would start with mindset and know that prepare for things that are coming, but don't worry about them once you've got those preparations, and then just focus on today so that you're present for your kids and your work today.
Absolutely. Creating that sense of presence is so important. I know in coaching a lot of professionals to really think about what gets in the way of you being present. And sometimes it's busyness. Sometimes we can't be present because we're trying to get so many things done. And I think now is a time where you can actually have grace from your employer, grace from yourself to just say, I'm not going to try to be overly productive. I'm going to set boundaries and expectations of, I'm only going to be online a couple of hours in the morning. I'm going to take some time during the day just to spend time with the kids, maybe do some spring cleaning or do something together as a family, and then get back online later. I think reimagining your day and setting those expectations is so important. And I think you can get more latitude as a result of what's happening that can play to your favor of taking a pause and thinking what's the most important thing. And I loved what you said about reimagining where you want to be, 3 months from now, and what you want to have said, wow, this is what we did, or this is what we learned, and this we got through this as a family. And as a parent or a husband and wife. And I think that's just a beautiful way to kind of set your focus on the future as opposed to getting caught up in the worry of the circumstances of the day. So thanks for that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple things I would recommend would be, I'm a very structured person, so this may not resonate with everybody listening, but create a plan. And as a homeschooler, I would create a week plan for my kids, and I would say what subjects we were covering each day, their violin practice or their piano practice, what was going in what time slots, because certain things that we did outside of the home, certain things we did in the home, and so there was kind of a master plan for the week. And depending on how the parents who were listening, their kids, whether they had school sent home with them, books, assignments, whether the teachers are doing stuff online, whether the parent has to kind of create things on their own. I don't know. There's a variety of different things, but my thing would be to create a plan. It's going to help you. It's going to give you some structure. It's going to give them structure. Kids kind of thrive typically in some structure. But when you have your conference calls, when you have your meetings, right? So you can kind of look at your schedule, their schedule, and when you have a break from a conference, in between a couple calls, as Kristen was saying, pour into your kids for 20, 30 minutes, maybe an hour in that time. Maybe your spouse is home also. Maybe the two of you kind of take turns. But you can say, like, what would really bless my kids at that time? Maybe one of them loves to draw. Maybe one of them loves to cook. Maybe one of them loves to do Legos. You know, and so kind of you can, what's the expression, like feed their love bucket or their love bank, you know, pour into their love bank at that time, just for 15, 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's going to make a huge deposit for them, so that if you're gone now for another couple hours doing work, they aren't now pulling at you constantly, because they're kind of fulfilled and content. And I totally experienced that. There were times when my daughter would come to me, a youngest daughter, maybe 7, 8, 9, and, you know, Mom, hey, look at this drawing I did, and I'd be working on something, and I'd turn to her and I would say, I so want to give you my full attention on what you're showing me. Right now I can't, I'm in the middle of something, but in 15 minutes I'll be done, and I will come and I will give you my full attention, because I really want to give that to you and you deserve it. And she would walk away very happy and content. Now I had to make sure in 15 minutes I went and was with her. So my estimate of my time, my estimate of my time had to be pretty accurate, because otherwise you're going to have them coming back, and if they can tell time, they're going to start getting frustrated. So anyway, to avoid some of the frustration, that is a couple things that I would say is to have a plan, kind of a master plan, and have it correspond to your own work schedule. Pour into your kids 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes at a couple times during the day. If you can take longer times, great. But, and then if they are kind of at you, turn to them and just tell them you really want to give them your full attention. You can't at that moment, but you will. And then you have to follow through on that.
Yeah. And I think the important thing there is kind of measuring up when is the really kind of critical things that I have to get done, and how does that measure up with perhaps that overarching schedule, so that I can kind of balance and set expectations and say, okay, I've got calls early in the morning, so maybe somebody else needs to take care of getting breakfast ready, or doing some morning chores, or doing some things there. And maybe your kids have more energy in the morning where they can dig into projects that might require a little focus. And then in the afternoon, segue back to maybe there's more screen time in the afternoon for them, as opposed to limiting screen time. Maybe the screen time can be times when you really have to hunker down for a couple hours to get things done, where you have more flexibility. So I love the idea of having a plan, and then having a little bit of flexibility and nuancing in there, and seeing it as a partnership. It doesn't have to be that my job is a secret. I mean, share with your kids and tell them, hey, I've got a really important call. It's funny, I remember a time with my daughter, and she was 10 or 11 at the time, and we were at I had to bring her with me to work, quite honestly. So it was kind of not a take your kid to work day, but she was coming with me, and I had to facilitate a workshop with women, and we were working on, structuring an event and things of that nature. And I had her take notes. So there was at 8 years old listening to the conversation, and she took notes, and then I let her report out to me. So this is also an opportunity where you don't have to shut your kids out of your job, out of your life, for what you do. Bring them in and give them something to do so they feel a part of helping you. And that's teaching your kids about what you do. That's giving them a learning opportunity that they're never going to get. And then they'll have a little bit more understanding around what you do, and what you're about, and what your job is. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity to kind of quote what you said earlier on, is that gift, right? Use the time as a gift of things that you might be able to do with your kids that you will never have another opportunity to do, and come out stronger as a family on the quick side.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was reading, and this is a great tip, is splitting the work with a partner, and kind of measuring up. So not only planning with your kids, but planning with your partner, with your spouse, how you're going to divide and conquer, so to speak. What's on their plate? How can you support them? How can they support you?
Yeah.
And ask those open-ended questions that we do when we're coaching each other. Say, what are the 1 or 2 things I can do for you this week that will help you? And first, to open up those lines of communication. Is that something you'd experienced as well?
Yeah, I love that. That was something that I noted as well too. When you're creating this, I really think this plan can, if the parents, if no kind of meetings and stuff they're already looking at for the week, when you're putting together this plan for the kids, when your meetings are. Not necessarily, but to some extent, maybe some of them. So you want to ask your kids' input, if they're old enough. How do you want to kind of, here are some things that you need to do. Where do you think they should fit in? And kind of see it as a little bit of a puzzle, but this is kind of a weekend thing. I typically wouldn't be doing this in the middle of the week. I would do this over the weekend. And what's your spouse's schedule like? So you, your spouse, your kids kind of have input into this plan. Now, it's not rigid, it's flexible, but it's going to give you some good guidance on how the week might play out. And you may have to tweak it in the middle if things change. But one thing that I had mentioned to you prior is when I would get my kids up, so let me step back for a second. I have a sample plan on my website under my resources tab, so people can just go over there and check out my I think I called it like the homeschool / chores schedule. And they can just look and see what we did. And I actually got my kids up. I didn't realize I got them up as early as I did, but it looks like I got them up at 7 in the morning. And when I did get the kids up, I would get them up pretty gently. They would come, my husband was already up getting ready for work, and they would come and get in our bed. I would sit in the little glider rocker that I had from when they were, babies next to my bed. And we would do quiet time. We would do tell me about your dreams. We would do Bible study. We would just spend 15, 20, 30 minutes there in a gentle way, connecting before we kind of got on the day. And actually the next thing on the list was a chore. We all had to do a 15-minute chore every day. And we had that on our master plan as well. So then we went into academics and things like that. But you can check that out on my website. So that was one thing I wanted to say. And then to get some ideas, and you're probably going to get to this, was just joining homeschool Facebook groups. I'm a part of a number of homeschool Facebook groups, and I'm seeing it already. People are coming on and saying, hey, I'm kind of being forced to homeschool now, and I really need some advice here. This is the age of my kids. This is kind of some of what's going on with them. Maybe one of them has ADD, or maybe one of them is an angry teenager, or who knows. But you have specific kids that you can bring right to that homeschool group and say, what would you recommend? And you're going to get a response. You're going to get people kind of reaching out to you saying, okay, what specifically are you looking for in terms of what is your real question? And then the people will start responding. So that's an idea to get some input into maybe your plan.
Yeah. And I love that. And it brings to light a very important part about this is even though we are socially distancing ourselves, being asked to stay home, avoid large crowds, we are not alone. We have a community of people that we can reach out to, and hopefully everyone has that type of community, whether it's in your neighborhood, whether it is virtual through a social media group, whether it's even in your church, start a group. And even with your employer, when I was at KPMG, we had a lot of parent networks and parent groups. And so leverage those tools and the online capacity that you have to do a virtual call, maybe, once a week with all the parents to kind of share some best practices or start a list on Slack. And even here, so when you're done watching this on LinkedIn and wherever you're watching our little video chat, that you will share comments about what you're doing and what you're seeing, what's working for you, because this is not a one-size-fits-all approach. And you're going to take a few pieces of best practices over here. You're going to take an idea over there, and you're going to make your own strategy to go.
Absolutely.
I was on LinkedIn, and every feed was some group, 3 tips for here, 5 steps there. And I'm guilty. I wrote a blog with three tips that I thought would be really helpful to figure things out. And it's a lot of what we're heard. It's setting expectations, amping up the communication, communicating a little differently. But one of the things that I think we really want to emphasize is that this is not something that you have to be, don't worry or put too much pressure on yourself to really be all of these things at the same time. This is a messy time. This is a complex time. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself a pause. If you need to take an afternoon off and just, go for a walk or step outside and breathe and not work, then you need to give that to yourself. And people will understand. Everybody's going to need different things. If you need to shut the door in your bathroom and do your conference calls and make your bathroom, your virtual office for 20 minutes, then do it. If you need to, creates a new way to use your dining room table. Maybe that becomes something else, not where you're going to eat. Just reimagine the space that you have and be flexible and move yourself around. Don't sit in one place, all day long feeling like I have to work. Really give yourself that pause to be who you need to be for your kids and your family and your spouse and your community. I love there was an article that CNBC.com sent out and working at home with kids. And one of the things I loved was the virtual babysitters, right? Using FaceTime on your devices for 20 minutes with a neighbor or an aunt.
Yes.
Let's not let this virus take away our human connectivity that we need to be strong and resilient and healthy. So, who haven't you talked to in a really long time? Send them off with your kids for 15 minutes while you do a call or do something else so that they get some interaction. And one of the recommendations was a virtual play date. So where can you schedule FaceTime with your kids and relatives,
friends,
neighbors, and things like that? I mean,
especially if they're missing their friends too. It could be a play date with the friends from school.
Absolutely. And all things with caution, but particularly with the older generation, we're separated from family right now. And, I have an aging father I can't go see, and he doesn't have FaceTime. So I have to call. Using the telephone to connect with folks. And hopefully when this passes and we get the clear that we can, actually have physical contact, this causes us to embrace and just say, what would be possible? What can I say yes to that what do I have to stop doing because it's not going to serve me or my family well? And I just have to make that priority. So just in wrapping up from our time together, what's one thing that we haven't shared or we haven't talked about that you want to share before we close?
Well, if you don't mind, I have a couple things. Just to add to the plan, just be creative when you're planning, games, Legos, life skills, reading, books on audio, being outside, all kinds of things that you can include into the plan or just as a playtime, of course, those things are whatever your kids are interested in, and maybe explore something that's new that your kids are somewhat interested in, but go deeper. And then I was going to say, again, I have some things on the website for resources. I have a chore chart. I have a list of positive adjectives for communicating with your kids, things that I got years ago that I used. Another thing that I learned in a parenting class was setting up traditions, and it doesn't have to be anything big. This example that this man who was teaching the class talked about was peanut butter. They all love to open up that peanut butter, that little foil wrapper off the peanut butter lid. And so they decided to make it a family tradition. And when they got a new thing of peanut butter, they would peel off the lid together, and they all had a spoon. They all got to put their spoon in at the same time and get the first taste of peanut butter together. That became a family tradition. So something like that, you can start creating something new here that didn't exist before. That's why I'm saying this could be looked at as a gift. Empower kids to new responsibilities. Like I said, my homeschool / chore schedule includes chores, so a chore chart. But allowing them to rise to the occasion on things that you're putting out there. Maybe you'd never give an allowance before. I had a whole topic on that, about giving allowances and how to make that happen. And then encourage your kids and applaud them for job well done.
Yes.
I was just listening to something by Tony Robbins. That would be another thing. Listen to some of Tony Robbins' stuff, but just talking about focusing on your strengths and not necessarily on your weaknesses. We know that our weaknesses can be delegated. Some things that we're not great at, we want to delegate. We want to be in our zone of genius. And same thing with our kids. Now, of course, they have to do biology or whatever things that they may think is not in their zone of genius for schoolwork. But this is an opportunity to use this time for your kids to now focus in on things that they love and go deeper in it and strengthen those things. So my final encouragement, like I said at the very beginning, is using this time as a gift to bless them, bless your family, bless yourself. And as Kristen said, give yourself grace, give grace to your kids. And the fact that you're working from home, I've worked from home for years. You can work at 10 o'clock at night. if you still have the bandwidth. And but you don't have to do it all in 8 hours. Don't feel like you have to mimic work, or don't feel like you have to mimic school. Don't feel like you have to set up chairs and desks. Homeschooling is not like that. You do not have to mimic school, and you do not have to mimic work. You might have to get your work done, and they might have to get their schoolwork done, but it doesn't have to be the traditional sense.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. For the past 2 years, I've been a business consultant and coach, and I've been working from home. I do virtual coaching just like this with my colleagues and with my clients, and I do virtual meetings and summits and all kinds of tools using virtual experiences. And one of the things my husband has reminded me of, because we both are at home, we're both kind of doing this day in and day out, 7 days a week. You need to reimagine places in your home to work. So my final comments to just echo what yours are is just find a creative space where you need to be productive, and give yourself the grace. If it's a beautiful day outside, that is not a guilty pleasure to go sit outside and read something completely different. Or go rake leaves, or go plant flowers, or something of that nature. And, differentiate your space. You do not have to be tethered to your desk. I would take my laptop and go sit outside and be just as productive inside the house. So don't imprison yourself in your home feeling like that's where you need to be to get the work done. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. This is really fun. I hope it's valuable and helpful to those who are watching this.
Yeah.
And you can go to my website at jaskapconsulting.com, and I am offering people, workers, parents, complimentary sounding board coaching. Just send me a message. You can schedule time on my website and connect with me. If you need anything, just ask. This is a time to pull together and support people and help people. That's why I do what I do on a day-to-day basis, and that's what I'm here for. So love to support folks any way we can. And Kathleen, thank you so much for joining me on this talk. And God bless everybody as we do this time together.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.